Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're digging into some fascinating history today, pulling out the key insights for you. Today, we're plunging into a really epic story from South Indian history. The amazing rise and, well, the dramatic fall of two really powerful empires, the Vijayanagar and Bahmani kingdoms.
Two titans, really.
Exactly. And our mission today is to explore how these two significant powers popped up, essentially from the ruins of an earlier empire. We'll look at their periods of glory, their, distinct contributions, and then the ultimate reasons for their decline, which were often sort of tangled together.
Yeah, intertwined fates.
Get ready for a story of this constant clash, really, between two major players that shaped centuries of history. Okay, so before we dive right into these two kingdoms, Vijayanagar and Bahmani, we kind of need to set the scene, right?
Definitely.
Understand the background. It wasn't just an empty space they appeared in.
No, not at all. This stage was actually set by the disintegration of the Tughlaq Empire, particularly during the very turbulent last days of Muhammad Tughlaq's rule. That chaos really created the perfect conditions for new powers to rise.
Oh, okay.
And what's really interesting is how Muhammad Tughlaq's own policies, some of his big projects, they actually alienated people, and they hit the economy hard.
So, like, ambitious plans gone wrong.
Exactly. Think about projects draining the treasury, policies making provincial governors really unhappy. It directly paved the way for rebellion, almost like dominoes falling.
So not just incompetence maybe, but good intentions maybe, that just didn't work out.
Precisely. And then his successor, Firoz Tughlaq, he couldn't really fix things. In fact, some of his policies, like leniency in some areas, but also religious intolerance, imposing jizya, sometimes destroying temples and bringing back feudalism, that actually weakened royal authority even more. You have to remember, this was a centralized monarchy. It really only worked well with strong rulers at the helm.
Right.
So after Firoz Tughlaq, you get these weaker successors, and they just become, pawns for powerful nobles. They couldn't hold the empire together.
And the military, that must have been key.
Absolutely crucial. The military power, the backbone of the Delhi Sultanate, it just deteriorated significantly under these weaker rulers. So naturally, rebellion started popping up everywhere. And then the final blow, really devastating, was Timur's invasion in 1398 AD.
Timur.
Yeah. That just created anarchy. And it gave all those provincial governors the perfect chance to say, right, I'm independent now, and carve out their own kingdoms.
So this weakening giant left a huge power vacuum, especially down in South India.
A massive one.
And right into that void stepped our two main players, Vijayanagar and Bahmani. Quite an entrance.
Couldn't have planned it better, in a way.
Okay, let's start with the Vijayanagar kingdom. The name itself, City of Victory. That sounds promising.
It does.
And its origin story is pretty incredible.
It absolutely is. So this powerful kingdom, it was founded way back in 1336 AD by two brothers, Harihara and Bukka. And a key factor in its rise was that vacuum we mentioned, created when Muhammad bin Tughlaq decided to move his capital back to Delhi in 1329. Left a gap in the Deccan.
Right. And these brothers, Harihara and Bukka, what's their story?
Well, imagine this. They were originally officers, working for the Raja Warangal. They get captured, taken all the way to Delhi by the Tughlaqs, forced to convert to Islam, given important jobs.
Okay.
But then somehow, against all odds, they not only escape, but head back south to the Deccan, and they found an empire that would basically defy the very power that had captured them.
Wow, that's audacious. Almost like something out of a movie.
It really is. That's the beginning of Vijayanagar.
Now, if there's one name that really shines when you talk about Vijayanagar's glory, it has to be Krishnadeva Raya, right? The kingdom really peaked under him.
Oh, absolutely. Krishnadeva Raya. He reigned from 1509 to 1530 AD, and he brought Vijayanagar to the absolute pinnacle of its glory. He's widely seen as, not just Vijayanagar's greatest ruler, but genuinely one of India's greatest historical figures.
So what made him so great? Military? Administration?
All of the above, really. He was a brilliant soldier, a great general. He managed to subdue ambitious local lords, his vassals, and crucially, he secured the fertile Raichur Doab. That's the region between the Krishna and Tungabhadra rivers.
The Raichur Doab. That keeps coming up. Why was it so important?
Well, it wasn't just fertile land, though that was important for revenue. Its location was strategic. It controlled access, trade routes between the north and south. So yeah, it was a constant, often bloody flashpoint between Vijayanagar and the Bahmani kingdom.
Okay.
So Krishnadeva Raya captured the Raichur fort. He defeated the king of Orissa, Gajapati Pratapudra, got back territories, took fortresses. He even defeated the Sultan of Bijapur, raided their territory, and knocked down the Gulbarga fort.
So his military success wasn't just about grabbing land, it was about securing vital resources, strategic points.
Exactly. And the result, his authority stretched incredibly far. South Konkan in the west, Vizagapatam in the east, right down to the extreme south of India. Even islands out in the Indian Ocean apparently acknowledged his power. That tells you something about Vijayanagar's prestige under him.
Incredible reach. And diplomacy. Did he engage with others?
He did. He understood its importance. He kept up friendly relations with the Portuguese governor, Albuquerque, even gave them permission to build a fort at Batkal. Smart move, probably.
And beyond the battlefield, how did he run this huge empire? Was he a good administrator?
Remarkable, actually. He reorganized the empire, divided it into 6 provinces. But interestingly, villages were still looked after by local councils, the panchayats, which is quite something for such a large empire.
Decentralized at the local level.
Yeah. And economically, land revenue was key, collected anywhere between a third and a sixth of the produce. But also, world trade was huge. They traded extensively. Arabia, Persia, Africa, China, Southeast Asia, Myanmar.
Wow. What were they trading?
Importing valuable stuff like horses, elephants, silk, velvet. Exporting essentials like rice, sugar, sandalwood, iron spices. It was a really thriving economy.
And culturally, I hear he was quite the figure himself.
Oh, absolutely. A giant culturally, too. He was an accomplished scholar himself, wrote a famous work called Amukta in Telugu, and he was a huge patron of learning. His court was famous for the Ashtadiggjas, the 8 elephants, 8 great scholars.
8 elephants, like literary giants.
Exactly, including his court poet Padana and the legendary wit Tenali Raman. You've probably heard stories about him.
Ah, Tenali Raman, yes.
So Krishnadeva Raya encouraged music, philosophy, painting, carving, just a flourishing of arts and culture. Architecturally, he left us the stunning Hazara Temple and the Vithalaswamy Temple. Both are considered really prime examples of Hindu temple architecture.
Any contemporary accounts. What did people think of him then?
There's a great one from a Portuguese traveler, Domingo Paes. He visited the court and described Krishnadeva Raya as, and I quote, the most learned and perfect king that could possibly be.
High praise indeed, especially from an outsider.
Very high praise.
Okay, so that's the ruler, the empire. But what about the people? Beyond the grandeur, what was everyday life like in this city of victory?
That's a really important question because beyond the kings and the battles, it's the society, the people's lives that really tell you about an empire. And socially, Vijayanagar had some, well, surprising elements for its time.
Oh, like what?
Well, women, generally speaking, held quite a high position. They were active in political life, social life, literary activities. They received education. They were even trained in things like wrestling, using swords and shields, alongside music and other fine arts.
Wait, women trained in wrestling? Seriously, that sounds very progressive for the era.
It does, doesn't it? There are actual references to women wrestlers, guards, accountants, even astrologers.
What do you think that tells us about their values compared to maybe other places at the time?
Well, it suggests a society that, at least in some areas, valued capability and skill regardless of gender. Which is, yeah, pretty remarkable for the time.
But it wasn't all modern, was it?
No, definitely not. It's important to paint the full picture. Other customs were also very common, things like polygamy, especially among the royals and the wealthy. Child marriage was prevalent. Sati, the practice of widows immolating themselves on their husband's funeral pyre that happened. And dowry was common too.
Right. So a real mix.
A mix, exactly. And the Brahmins, the priestly class, they were held in very high esteem and had significant influence in social, religious, and political matters.
And food. Any restrictions?
Apparently not many. People ate meat of all kinds of animals except oxen or cows because they were worshipped.
Okay, so a complex society. Some surprisingly forward-thinking aspects mixed with deeply traditional practices.
That sums it up well.
Now, across the river, so to speak, another power was rising. Let's talk about the Bahmani kingdom.
Right, the other major player. The Bahmani kingdom was founded in 1347 AD, so just a bit after Vijayanagar. Its founder was Hassan Gangu, and interestingly, he was also one of Muhammad bin Tughlaq's officers.
Another one. Seems like the Tughlaq decline really seeded these new kingdoms.
It really did. So Hassan Gangu took the title Alauddin Bahman Shah and set up his capital at Gulbarga. Over its history, the kingdom had 18 rulers, lasting from 1347 until about 1527 AD.
Any notable early rulers?
Yeah, one important early figure was Firoz Shah Bahmani. He ruled from 1397 to 1422. He was known as a poet, knew many languages: Arabic, Persian, Turkish, even local languages like Telugu, Kannada, Marathi. He apparently had ambitions to make the Deccan a real cultural hub for India.
Interesting. Did he clash with Vijayanagar over that Doab region again?
He did. He actually conquered the richer Doab initially from Vijayanagar, but then he later lost it back to them, which just highlights, again, how that region was constantly fought over.
Okay. But the name that really stands out in Bahmani history, the one who seems like a real game changer, is Mahmud Gawan.
Mahmud Gawan, absolutely. He's a pivotal figure. He was an incredibly able general and minister. He basically ran the empire during the reign of Muhammad Shah III from 1463 to 1482. He served as regent for 18 years because the king, Muhammad Shah III, was only 9 years old when he took the throne.
18 years as regent. Wow. What did he achieve?
A lot. He significantly extended the kingdom's boundaries. He conquered the Konkan coast in 1469, parts of Orissa in 1478, and crucially, he captured the ports of Dabhol and Goa.
Goa, that must have been a blow to Vijayanagar.
A huge strategic win. Those
Right.
ports were vital for trade, and Vijayanagar had benefited from them. Taking them really boosted the Bahmani position.
So, a military mind. But what about other areas? Economy, culture.
He wasn't just military-focused. He actively promoted and encouraged agriculture, which really helped make the Bahmani kingdom prosperous. And he himself was a deeply learned man, a major patron of scholarship, much like Krishnadeva Raya in Vijayanagar, actually.
Interesting parallel.
Yes. He built a madrasa, a college, in the capital, Bidar. He established a vast library, even donated 3,000 books from his own personal collection. And he provided scholarships for poor and talented students. He's often described as being far superior to his contemporaries, living a simple, honest life, serving 3 different reigns with efficiency and integrity.
He sounds almost too good to be true. An effective general, administrator, scholar, patron.
He really does seem exceptional.
Yet, despite all this dedication, all these achievements, his story ends tragically, doesn't it? It sounds almost like something out of, well, a Shakespeare play.
It really does. A
Yeah.
truly tragic end. And the seeds of it were sown much earlier, right inside the Bahmani court itself. There were these 2 rival groups of nobles constantly jockeying for power.
Internal politics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had the Deccani nobles, the locals, and the Pardesi nobles, the foreigners, mainly Persians and Turks who'd come seeking fortune. This rivalry was constant, simmering, and ultimately it proved fatal for Gawan and really for the kingdom.
So what happened? How did it turn deadly?
Well, in 1481, the local Deccani nobles, basically driven by jealousy and political ambition, they forged a letter. This letter made it look like Gawan was being treacherous, maybe plotting with enemies.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They showed this forged letter to the king, Muhammad Shah III. The king then summoned Gawan. Apparently, the king first asked Gawan, maybe testing him, what the punishment for a traitor should be. And Gawan, loyal to the end, replied, death.
Oh, setting his own sentence.
Tragically, yes. At that point, the king showed him the forged letter. And Gawan was immediately beheaded right there and then.
Just like that, based on a forged letter.
Just like that. It was swift and brutal. And with his death, it's like all the glue holding the Bahmani kingdom together just dissolved. The cohesion, the real power, it departed with him. A terrible self-inflicted wound.
That's devastating. Just throws away their most capable person because of court intrigue.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for their broader legacy? Architecture, culture? Did they leave much behind despite this ending?
They did, actually. If you look at their lasting impact, the Bahmani rulers left behind a really impressive architectural and cultural legacy. They were great patrons of Islamic art, architecture, language, music. We mentioned Firoz Shah Bahmani wanting to make Deccan a cultural center, and his successors continued that. They built many beautiful mosques in their capital cities, Gulbarga and later Bidar, colleges, libraries. Some key examples you can still see are the Jama Masjid at Gulbarga, the famous Charminar in Hyderabad, though built by a successor state, the Qutb Shahis, it carries the Bahmani influence, and the really outstanding Gol Gumbaz in Bijapur.
Ah, the Golgumbaz. That's the one with the massive dome, right?
That's the one. It's the tomb of one of the later rulers, Adil Shah, from a successor kingdom. But its architectural style owes a lot to the Bahmani period. The enormous dome, it stands without any supporting pillars inside, a real feat of engineering.
And it has that whispering gallery?
Exactly. It's famously known as the Whispering Dome because the acoustics are incredible. Even the faintest whisper travels around the dome and can be heard clearly on the other side, apparently echoing multiple times.
Wow.
It's truly remarkable. It's the second largest dome in the world after St. Peter's Basilica in Rome.
That's impressive. And what about their relationship with their non-Muslim subjects? Vijayanagar seemed complex. What about Bahmani?
That's an important point. The Bahmani rulers were actually known for being relatively tolerant towards their Hindu citizens. They even employed Hindus in senior government positions, which suggests a degree of pragmatism, perhaps, or maybe genuine tolerance in their administration. It's an important aspect of their society, even if maybe the historical records aren't quite as detailed on daily life as for Vijayanagar.
Okay, so two powerful kingdoms, incredible achievements on both sides. But as we've heard, they were constantly fighting.
Constantly.
What was the absolute core issue, the main reason for all that conflict?
Without a shadow of a doubt, it was the Raichur Doab, that fertile strip of land between the Krishna and Tungabhadra rivers.
Back to the Doab.
Always back to the Doab. As we said, its fertility was one thing vital for agriculture, revenue. But its strategic location was just as important. Controlling it meant controlling trade routes, defensive positions. It was the key piece of real estate in the region.
So it just inevitably led to war after war.
Frequent and often very brutal wars, yes.
And ultimately, this relentless rivalry, plus the internal problems we've discussed, it led to the downfall of both kingdoms, didn't it? Especially Vijayanagar.
Yes, though perhaps in slightly different ways.
Mm.
The decline of Vijayanagar was largely triggered by the actions of Rama Raya. He was the powerful prime minister of the later Vijayanagar rulers, and he kept interfering in the affairs of the 5 independent Bahmani successor kingdoms that had formed after Mahmud Gawan's death.
Trying to play them off against each other, divide and conquer.
Exactly. He was trying to keep them weak by siding with one against another. But this constant meddling, this manipulation, it eventually backfired spectacularly. It finally pushed the kingdoms of Ahmednagar, Bijapur, Golconda, Berar, and Bidar to do something they rarely did: put aside their own rivalries. They formed a united confederation, a coalition with one single goal: destroy the Vijayanagar kingdom.
So their long-running interference actually unified their enemies against them. That's ironic.
Deeply ironic. The defining moment came in 1565. A massive, fierce battle took place at a place called Talikota. The combined armies of the sultans won a decisive victory. They utterly destroyed the capital city of Vijayanagar, sacked it completely.
Devastating.
Absolutely. Even today, if you go visit the ruins at Hampi, you can still sense the scale of the destruction, but also the remnants of the glory. It tells that glorious but ultimately tragic story, etched in stone.
And the Bahmani kingdom, how did its end play out? It had already weakened with Gawan's death.
Its end was also fundamentally internally driven. As we discussed, that poisonous rivalry between the Deccani and Pardesi nobles just never went away. Mahmud Gawan's execution removed the last real unifying, stabilizing force. The constant infighting just crippled the administration. So by 1527, the kingdom had effectively ceased to exist as a single entity. It completely fractured into those 5 independent kingdoms we keep mentioning: Berar, Bijapur, Ahmednagar, Golconda, and Bidar.
The very same ones that later united against Vijayanagar.
The very same ones. And of course, once Vijayanagar was dealt with, they didn't suddenly become friends. They went back to plotting and fighting against each other. Berar eventually got swallowed up by Ahmednagar. Bidar was annexed by Bijapur. And the 3 remaining kingdoms, Bijapur, Ahmednagar, and Golconda, they survived for a while longer, but were eventually conquered one by the expanding Mughal Empire from the north. That was the final end of their independent rule.
So what does this all mean for us looking back? We've taken this deep dive into a really fascinating story, the Vijayanagar and Bahmani kingdoms. We've seen how this void, left by a declining empire, allowed these 2 distinct, powerful South Indian kingdoms to rise, each with unique strengths, incredible cultural achievements, but also, crucially, their own internal weaknesses, flaws that contributed to their decline, often tangled up with each other.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is how their fates were so intertwined, especially how internal divisions, that factionalism in the Bahmani court, led to its fall, and how Vijayanagar's attempts to exploit those divisions, that external interference, ultimately led to its destruction.
Right.
It really highlights that sometimes the biggest threats aren't necessarily your external enemies. The real danger can be the fault lines within your own society, your own politics. And sometimes, ironically, having a common enemy can actually worsen those internal divisions in the long run. It's a powerful lesson, really, in political dynamics.
Definitely a lesson there. And for you listening, as you think about the rise and fall of these truly mighty empires, maybe consider this. What elements of their success or their failure resonate most strongly today? When we think about the challenges of managing large, diverse groups, organizations, even countries, perhaps it's about the need for a strong, unifying vision, or the absolute danger of internal divisions being allowed to fester.
Or even the subtle ways economic policy or foreign policy decisions can ripple through an entire civilization.
Exactly. Something to mull over. Some food for thought until our next deep dive.